Thank you for joining. Should be here for our Tech Talks live event today. So we have the folks from Netrix as well as CommScope, commonly known as Ruckus, and we'll begin here. So let's see here. Here we go. So today's agenda, I'll do some quick introductions here. We'll then have Ruckus present, and Terrence, you want to give a little disclaimer about where you have to run off to, and why you have to make some changes here.
So our apologies for inconveniencing everybody on this phone call, but we have our virtual sales kickoff starting at 11. So not to talk about it too much, but we got the thumbs up from somebody, and then a week and a half later we got the thumbs down. So that's why we had to bump this a bit early. But we'll make sure, obviously, that everybody has our contact info. So if there are any additional questions that come up, you know, we'll be easily to get in touch with. So, but we do appreciate everybody making time and getting this moved for us. So thank you. Excellent,
thank you. And then following the Ruckus presentation, we'll move on to the Netrix presentation, and we'll wrap this up and get people on their way. So we have a few people in attendance from CDVS. Kelly, you want to say hello?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Look forward to this virtual event. It's going to be filled with great information, and we really appreciate your time.
And Christy?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Excited to see what you find interesting today.
Excellent. And Rachel?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining, and look forward to this event.
All right, great. So a few housekeeping items. What we'll do is during the presentations from Ruckus and Netrix, we'll just ask people to mute themselves. We are recording the session, so we will be sending a link out afterwards. So for the folks that could not join us, we'll definitely be forwarding that to those folks, as well as to everyone that has joined us. So if you found the information useful, you want to refer back to it or forward that link along to other coworkers, feel free. Names will be drawn at the end for 2 gift cards, and I think I have that wrong. I believe, Terrence, you said gift cards up to $100 worth of value? Is that
yeah,
right?
We're doing up to $100.
Okay, and Will, is that about the same for you?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So we'll do those at the end. You have to be present to win. Questions are encouraged during the presentation, so chat them in, and we'll kindly interrupt and be cautious about interrupting, but we'll kindly interrupt the presenter and insert your question, get those questions answered, and for every question asked, another chance to win the raffle. A raffle is will be put in the hat, if you will. And then let's see here. For the folks that don't know us, who's CDVS? We were founded in 2003 with a focus of the converged network. So we've been doing this for quite some time. We started out with a technology back in the day called, VoIP or voice over IP, and continued to add applications onto the network, whether it was video and contact centers and the like. We take a consultative approach, understanding what's important to you, the customer, not what's important to us. Try to package that, find the vendors that will be a good fit for your requirements, and then and introduce those and get you in contact with them. So definitely, like I said, a consultative approach, and our focus is to help you improve communications in your business. We definitely take I always smile and chuckle at this one, a high touch approach, but obviously we can't be touching anyone in this day and age, but use that term as you will. Project planning, implementation, ongoing support, that's the whole package that we offer here at Corporate Data and Voice. We have extremely high retention rate, which we're very proud of. We're passionate about what we do. We still enjoy thoroughly what we do. So hopefully you get a sense of that as we go through this presentation. Our pillars of business is pretty simple: honesty, integrity, and accountability. It doesn't get more simple than that. Why we host these tech talks, we've had a long tradition of doing in-person lunch and learns and events, and a strong reputation for educating our customers and prospects on emerging technologies. We hope to get back to in-person events. We said that last year. We definitely will get back, I promise, to in-person events this year, and definitely looking forward to it. Little fun note, right? Hope you enjoy the presentation. I don't know if anybody's tried to teach their parents the use of technology. Hopefully that gives you a chuckle, and we will turn it over to the folks from CommScope Ruckus.
All right, thank you, Joe. And Gene's going to be sharing his screen. So hello, everyone. Once again, thank you for shifting your schedules to allow us to come here. We hope to make it worth your while. But just a quick introduction. My name is Terrence Sullivan. I am the territory manager for Ruckus Networks in New England. And we also have our senior systems engineer, Gene Nowitzki, on this call. Just for a bit of background, I've been at Ruckus for about 6 years now. Gene about 2, and I have a heavy background in wireless, even beyond Ruckus. So we're going to spend some time here. Ruckus does a couple things outside of wireless, but today we're going to focus really on Ruckus APs and the Wi-Fi 6 standard that's out, and kind of some of the advantages that you get from how Ruckus specifically treats its technology and RF. Gene, you can go to the next slide. So I start with the kind of corporate history, but not really to touch on what the corporate history actually is, but really just the history of the technology. So Ruckus was founded in the early 2000s. It was actually a company called Video 54. The focus of Video 54 was in-home streaming over Wi-Fi. So obviously today, right, that's not anything crazy. We do it from all of our devices constantly. But back in the early 2000s, being able to get a consistent connectivity to a device and be able to stream over video was a pretty novel concept. So what it caused Ruckus to do in the founders was to create a technology which is basically the foundation for Beamflex. Which we're going to get into. So what it takes is basically, if you imagine that RF, coming off of a Wi-Fi access point, if you imagine it kind of as a light bulb, Ruckus turns that into a flashlight. So when we're actually communicating with a client, we're taking the RF and we're hyper-focusing that at that client we're speaking with, so we can service that client quicker. And that adds capacity to the entire network because we're able to offload that quicker. So that was obviously a company that was a great idea, but didn't have a lot of legs. So it shifted pretty quickly into what is Ruckus Networks today, which is after a couple acquisitions, we are the enterprise networking group under CommScope. It is important to note that we are basically run as a separate business unit, though. So a lot of our leadership through the acquisitions has stayed. And actually, the CommScope acquisition was really good for us because it gave us a little bit of insight onto the infrastructure side and the structured cabling, which obviously goes a little bit hand in hand with the edge of the network that we're going to be discussing today. So I'm not going to get too much more into the Beamflex stuff because if I do, I kind of take away a chunk of Gene's portion. But we'll spend some time getting a little bit more, under the hood on some of the APs, and then we're going to finish up with some third-party data. So it's not just myself and Gene patting ourselves on the back, but we have some, additional studies that have been done outside of Ruckus. So thank you, everybody, and Gene, go ahead.
Okay, so Terrence kind of already, let the cat out of the bag what the big difference is, but what's different about the Ruckus access point. So first, I want to do an analogy here. So this is a Hyundai i20 coupe. The left side is the specs for what you get off the lot, and then you have the World Rally car, the specs for the World Rally car. It's the same car, but it's different. It's souped up. It's built to race, to be high performance. And take that analogy and map it to access points. The car that you get from the lot is your reference design for all other vendors really, and then you have the Ruckus access points. So why is that? So we need to understand a few things about our access points, and the biggest difference the biggest differentiator that makes us gives us the capability of being a higher performance access point is the Beamflex technology, and we'll get into that in a minute. There's also some amplifiers and some low noise amplifiers, some filters, some switching that goes on in the hardware. There's CPU offload, there's some scheduling stuff that happens there. And then on the far column there, we have some of our custom features, channel fly, smart meshing, auto cell sizing, load balancing of clients. And this all boils down to we've got 100+ patents in the Wi-Fi technologies, and the biggest one being Beamflex. Okay, so let's get into Beamflex. But in order to understand what Beamflex is, I want to talk about beamforming. So, Terrence talked about focusing the energy of the signal. There is an 802.11 standard called beamforming that sort of focuses the signal in a specific direction. But what it does, it does it in a way. You need multiple antennas, and you're not focusing all the energy. What you're doing is you're creating two signals that intersect, and where the waves of energy intersect, it amplifies that signal. Okay, and we can get like a 3 to 4 dB gain from that. And if you want to take that to an analogy, you think about dropping two rocks in a pond. And where those waves intersect, let me, my laser pointer here. So right here is where those waves intersect. But you can see that the energy is still going in all directions. So going to Beamflex, it's that flashlight, a really good flashlight. So, what Terrence said earlier about the omnidirectional antennas for all other vendors, it transmits the light out, the signal out like a light does, or a light bulb does light. That was hard for me to get out. I don't know why I say it hundreds of times. So going to Beamflex, we're actually focusing that energy. We're using different amplifiers and different reflectors inside our antenna array, so that the RF is a beam. It's focused in a specific direction. So, what does that really equate to? Up to a 10 dB gain, which is usually, another 2, maybe 3 walls of penetration, depending on the material in those walls, obviously. It's not going to, get through 2 extra elevator walls, but in a normal office setting, we get a greater distance of RF. And there's also the increased sensitivity because of the way the antenna array works. So that client that's 2 rooms away has better performance than with a Beamflex antenna array than it does with a regular omnidirectional antenna array. So here's how it works. We have, I've kind of explained some of this already, but the patented antenna array, you can see on the left what the inside of our access points look like. That, those are reflectors and different antennas that, depending on the vector that we need to send the signal out, it'll use different components in there to make that signal go in that specific direction. And it doesn't do this, on a per conversation or per session. It does it on a per packet basis. So it's very, very fast, and it's constantly understanding where the client is and what's the best vector to use to get the best throughput. it's our engineers that did this had some incredible insight when they created it. So like I said, it's got stronger signals at longer distances. It changes per the environment. Having that signal strength focus in that direction allows us to have more concurrent users with higher data rates, making it more the end user experience much better. And it doesn't need anything special on the client, so it works with all clients. So that was Beamflex. So Beamflex Plus. So we're all aware that the orientation of our Wi-Fi device now, the orientation matters. So when you're walking with your iPad or your phone and you're turning it this way and that way, the signal, the RF signal needs to understand that orientation. So the waves are always coming in a specific pattern, whether it's a horizontal polarization or a vertical polarization. So with Beamflex Plus, we have PDMRC, polarization, diversity, maximum ratio combining. Terrence, I want you to say that. No, I'm kidding. So, we understand the orientation, and because of that antenna array, we can change the polarization of the signal. So it increases the data rate that the devices are connecting to the access point. So this is great, but prove it. So Terrence didn't really get any of my background, but I've been doing this stuff for a very long time, and I've been with just about every vendor out there, and I kind of understood what Beamflex was when I was working for Aruba and Extreme and Cisco, but I always thought it was a marketing thing. When I got here and I saw exactly how it worked and tested it, I'm like, wow, this is real. It's not just a marketing, gimmick or whatever you want to call it. So we have actually had a group. There's a couple different groups, but most recently we had a group called Clear to Send. There's there a couple. Their names escape me right now, but they have a podcast, and they're two of the most leading engineers within the Wi-Fi arena, and they did some testing for us, and they took a couple access points in a classroom setting. They had 30, I think it was actually one access point, sorry, 30 video streams, added some voice calls on top of it, and then added some data on top of it. And they did some testing, and they did it for 3 minutes. They did 2 runs, and they averaged to get the results. And this is how it turned out. We used the R570, which is a 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 access point, and we compared it to the Aruba, the Meraki Extreme, and the Mist access points that were comparable. And you can see this is the results of those 30 streams. So before the test, everybody but Mist was able to support 30 streams without adding any other data onto it. During the test, we sustained all 30. Aruba dropped, Meraki dropped, Extreme dropped, and Mist dropped significantly. And then after the test, when the test being adding that data in those voice calls, the streams, the video streams regained for us in Aruba, Meraki, some of them, Extreme a little bit more, and Mist was less. So when you're doing voice calls, there's a score called the mean opinion score, and what the mean opinion score is, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, and to sustain it's really it's an opinion. It's the user on the end, the person on the end of the phone listening and having a 4.0 is somebody saying, okay, this is good enough for me to have a conversation. And there's all kinds of math behind it, but the mean opinion score of 4 or 4.0 or better is considered total quality. And the mean opinion score has been around for years. And when they were doing these tests, they did the mean opinion score. They used IX Chariot, which is one of the tools from Ixia to do mean opinion scores. And IX Chariot is used by every vendor to do their testing of not only Wi-Fi stuff, but also, switches, routers, everything. Okay, so sorry, I skipped ahead without talking about the results. So we were the only one that sustained above a 4.0 on the mean opinion score for all those calls. Everybody dropped, and what we're talking about here is the voice traffic should have higher priority, and we recognize that it's voice and give it the higher priority. And because of the way that our CPU offloads work, the way our queuing works, we're able to sustain those VoIP calls as well as those video streams, as well as servicing the data all at the same time, and still provide the type of performance that everybody wants to have. The last measurement there was the throughput, just a plain old data throughput. And you can see that we topped out at 444, and everybody else was significantly less. And that's it in a nutshell. I went through things really fast. You guys have any questions?
Well, real quick too, I mean, obviously we touched, heavily on the technology side, but, also when we get into, kind of the cost savings on it, there's a lot that goes into design, right? What's in the walls and all of that, like Gene mentioned. But, in a normal, what's called an open air environment, we can tend to do about 2/3 the amount of access points that our competitors do. So if you imagine that, 2/3 the amount of APs, 2/3 the amount of cable runs, 2/3 the amount of switch ports, 2/3 the amount of failure points. So, I think when you start coming back, from the edge of what Ruckus does, it just continues to benefit you kind of all the way through your network. And we didn't touch on it, today, but, on top of that Wi-Fi switch line, we also have the ICX switch line, if anybody was familiar with Brocade previously. Which actually, Joe, I think that's kind of how our relationship started. That's the ICX switch line, which works really well, obviously, with the Ruckus side of things, and we have secure onboarding. So the APs is really our bread and butter. It's probably the best, the best differentiator and story we tell. But there's a lot more to Ruckus. And I also want to point out, when we were talking about those kind of 2 car models, and then Gene briefly showed, the inside of the APs, that, I just want to hammer that home. Nobody else is building out antenna arrays like that. That's a Ruckus specific thing. So everybody else is basically taking off, whatever they get from the manufacturers, and they're just keeping it the same, maybe throwing some secret sauce on the back end. But Ruckus basically builds everything from the ground up with the focus on providing kind of the best RF, in the industry. And, in my opinion, Wi-Fi should be the most important thing to your Wi-Fi network. Shockingly, that's not everybody's opinion, but that's, really what Ruckus is focused on. And, it's been 15 plus years now that we've been doing it. And, as Gene said, that was the Packet 6 test. We also had, an AC test on the R610 that proved the same thing in a previous model access point. So this has been, consistent for Ruckus throughout the years in this level of performance. And, so it's really fun to talk about. We'd like to, we love to get it tested. We love to show everybody how it works. But we can obviously, get some people these slides as well if they need the Packet 6 information.
And one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about on the scalability, there has been a big push lately to do, when deploying Wi-Fi, to deploy it in very small cells so that you can handle the 30 clients. With Beamflex Plus, we're still deploying on a large scale basis. We still can support all those users across, in a classroom, education in a school environment. What I've been seeing lately is everybody wants to put an access point in every single room. Sure, you can do that, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have to turn the power down tremendously to avoid channel interference, especially in the 2.4. The 2.4, we basically have 3 channels available, and if your access point isn't strong enough to really support 2 rooms of students, you need a different access point. It's to deploy in every single room. It's a management nightmare. It's tough to get the RF right. You have to deploy it, then you have to come out and do multiple Wi-Fi assessments to get the tuning right, so that you are those areas that are, there's no way of avoiding it, but the areas where there is channel interference, you minimize it. So that's a problem that I've been seeing as of the last couple months. People really want to go individual, 1 per room, and we don't recommend that. You go with a medium-sized access point, deploy it in every 3rd room, and you have the RF coverage and the data, the throughput to support all those clients. So do we have any questions? Was there anything posted?
I don't see any. I guess before we wrap this up, Gene did, and I apologize, managing or administrating, right?
Yep.
So there's a few options of managing.
Right. Yep. So there's a cloud option. Ruckus Cloud can manage an infinite number of access points, as well as switches. The ICX switches, we can manage them all through the Ruckus Cloud. We have Smart Zone, which is can be a hardware appliance or a virtual appliance running on your favorite hypervisor. And we also have, for smaller deployments, Unleashed, which one of the access points acts as the controller. Okay, and in all 3 scenarios, you can control switch configuration too.
And those aren't tied to specific AP models. So if you deployed an Unleashed network and then for some reason you wanted to ship to a cloud or a smart zone environment, those APs would just need to be flashed over to that, but you wouldn't have to replace any of the access point hardware.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. And how about monitoring the network?
That's a good question. So within all 3 of those management solutions, there's monitoring in there, but we also have Ruckus Analytics. It's a machine learning, artificial intelligence engine that looks at everything that's going on in the access points and tells you where to look for problems. So they'll see trends and give you advice on how to fix them. So the events are the incidents are P1 through P4, and when you log in the morning, it'll show you all your P1s, and that's where, as an IT administrator, you go and look at the things that are causing problems, and if you see a P1, that's something that needs your attention, and you can drill all the way down to it, and it'll tell you what the problem is and suggest a solution for it. So it's, everybody is trying to get to this point where we have self-healing networks, and this is a step towards that. Just, it's a really nice tool to have, and within that, if you go to the Packet 6, we'll publish the Packet 6 report. They talk about that, and the mean time to repair is much better than some of our competition with using Ruckus Analytics.
Okay. And how about training on that? What's available?
Well, we have a pretty extensive YouTube channel. I actually use it a lot. But there's also some training, some certifications that you can get from Ruckus, CommScope Ruckus. And we can always do a customized thing where I can come out and do some customized training for whomever.
Excellent. Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions as we wrap this portion up? All right. I think we're good. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Gene, Terrence, thank you. Appreciate it. Always
You're
a pleasure having you on our events. So next up, we'll turn it over to the folks at Netrix.
Great, thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Let me get the presentation up.
Yeah.
And while I do that, good morning, everyone, and thanks again to the whole CDVS team for hosting this for us. It's much appreciated. There we go. Cool. So my name is Will. I am with Netrix, and today we are going to provide you with a brief overview of Netrix as a company, an overview of Microsoft Teams Voice, and Microsoft Teams Direct Routing. Direct routing, in layman's terms, is really just a fancy way of saying you're using the Teams platform as a fully fledged business phone system. Direct routing is referring to the process of routing Microsoft Teams to the public switch telephone network, or PSTN. I'm going to try to leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions, but as Joe said, we're more than happy to answer questions during the presentation as well. So feel free to chime in whenever. Is my slide deck advancing right now, or is it just...
I see the Microsoft Teams Achieve More Together slide.
Okay. That's strange, because I am advancing it on my end, and it does not appear to be moving in Teams, even though I am sharing it. So that's kind of odd. Let me
maybe stop sharing and
yep, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to put it back up again. It just froze for a moment. Okay, we're back. Let's try that again.
Well, hold on one second. Yep, there you go.
Okay.
You're on slide 2.
All right, good deal. Yeah, for some reason it was kind of slow on the uptake there. So, with me today is my colleague Satyendra Sharma. He's a principal solution architect within our unified communications and collaboration practice group. So he's here to provide cover for me if we have any technical questions that I can't answer. So we'll kind of tag team this similar to the Ruckus CommScope team. Similarly, just kind of giving you a little bit of a history. Netrix as a company has been in business since the late 1980s. We've been in the unified communications space since the early 2000s. We've been working with Microsoft since before Teams was even rolled out. Teams is a relatively new product. It came out in 2017. But prior to that, there was Skype for Business and other unified communication solutions, and we've been in that space for roughly 20 years, maybe even a little bit more. Netrix as a company is roughly 800 employees today. One of our big differentiators is that we have a really deep and talented engineering bench. Of those 800 employees, a little more than half of them are, technical experts in, varying disciplines, whether it's unified communications, cloud, security, managed services, you name it. And we have a strong presence across the entire United States. So, excuse me. So, this is kind of just a map of, where individuals from Netrix are. The little blue building icons scattered across the maps are either physical office locations or data center locations that we own and operate. All of the orange states are where we actually have, an employee presence. And as a company, we have, worked in all 50 states as well as, with international organizations. We also, have a global support presence. We operate under a follow the sun model. So, 24/7, 365, if you have an outage, an incident, a Netrix employee will be there to help you, fix whatever that issue is. So we actually have, Netrix employees in all of these locations on this map. So in the Philippines, India, Bulgaria, and the UK. None of that is outsourced. Those are, Netrix team members, 24/7, 365. Our company really structures ourselves around 4 pillars: cloud, security, collaboration, and managed services. And, we're going to spend most of today talking about managed services, or excuse me, collaboration, and specifically Teams Direct Routing. So that, third pillar in the middle. And our collaboration and unified communications brand is TetraVx. That's just a brand within Netrix. You may see TetraVx logos and, email addresses from time to time. That is within Netrix. That is all things you see, whether it's, Teams Direct Routing, Cisco solution, digital workplace solutions, you name it. That all falls under our TetraVx umbrella. I will be sending this slide deck out. If your interest is piqued and you want to talk about something in one of the other pillars, please don't hesitate to reach out to, an individual at CDVS, and, we can get a one-on-one conversation going. This is just a snapshot. We operate in a wide range of verticals. These are some customers of ours in those verticals, just to kind of give you a feel for, our ability to accommodate, a wide range of customers. We always start end user first and, work back from there. So we, tailor the solution to the end user and then, work it from there. Across those pillars, we work with, a wide range of vendors, including Ruckus CommScope on here. Most notably regarding UC and collab, we've been a gold partner with Cisco since the early 2000s, and we are a gold partner with Microsoft since the early 2000s across a really wide range of disciplines. Obviously, Microsoft is a massive organization. They do a lot, we do a lot. So not just Teams, but, security, managed services, really their entire tech stack. So as I mentioned before, Teams Direct Routing is really, using Teams as your, enterprise business phone system. And, it really is a, fantastic unified communications and collaboration platform. We're obviously on Teams right now. Even if you don't personally use Teams within your organization, case in point, almost everyone today has been on a Teams meeting of some sort. It's very user friendly. The chat function, most people are pretty comfortable with. So, often a logical next progression and really kind of fully enabling teams and taking full advantage of it is to look at, consolidating onto fewer platforms and using it as a phone system as well. Unified communications has been a growing space for a while, but I think it really will come as no surprise to anyone that the pandemic really rapidly accelerated adoption. Teams, daily active users in July of 2019 was around 13 million. By July of 2021, that number was 250 million daily active users. So, in the span of 2 years, it went from 19 million to 250 million daily users, just massive growth. No surprise there. People had to kind of scramble, work from home, just kind of picked up whatever was easiest. A lot of people are already using, 365, Word, Excel, you name it, kind of pretty standard business tools. So, Teams usually comes in that suite of products, and it was kind of just a natural adoption. I think I saw a question in the chat, so let me navigate to that. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like Bob had said, how do you help solve the Microsoft support challenges around Teams problems?
So that's a great question. As a gold partner, if you're working with us, we have multiple support tiers, but 24/7, 365 support. Typically for any sort of Teams engagement that we're working in, there is a managed services component to ensure that you do have that support. If you've tried to get support directly from Microsoft at any time in the past, you know that sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating. That just kind of comes with the territory of them being as big as they are. So you can actually lean on us for that support, and that's one of the real advantages to partnering with us. And Sat, I don't know if you want to chime in on kind of support offerings in more detail. I also have a slide or two about support coming up in a little bit here too, so happy to expand upon that in a moment.
Yeah, we can talk about it a little more on that slide, Will.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Well, there is another question in chat. How is the system built? Is it a native SIP connection? Is there a session border controller needed?
I can take that, Will, if you want me to.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So the way we are providing the hosted direct routing solution to our clients is using a multi-tenant, highly redundant SBC environment that we manage and operate and maintain. So we leverage actually physical session border controllers in our multiple data centers in a redundant fashion. And those session border controllers are connected to multiple tier 1 carriers on the back that we work with. And on the other side, we actually integrate those pairs of SBCs with clients' Office 365 tenant. And that way we are able to provide the direct routing connectivity. When we onboard the client, we migrate or port their phone numbers over to our carrier. And then once it is ported over to us, using that SBC trunking, we are able to deliver it within the customer's Office 365 tenant.
Hopefully that answers that question. If not, please chat, chat in a clarifying question for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'll try to leave, at least 5, hopefully 10 minutes. So, we can have, kind of an open dialogue at the end as well. So, I mean, this slide really just shows, obviously Teams isn't the only UC platform out there. It's certainly not the only, telephony solution out there. That said, it really is recognized as a leader in those spaces. Within this chart, you really want to be at the, top and to the right. and I'm not sure how well everyone can see it because it is kind of small, but Microsoft is exactly in that spot. It's a leader in the space. It has been for at least the past 3 years, which is pretty impressive considering it was only rolled out in 2017. So of the roughly 5 years it's been around, it's really been leading the pack for more than half of that. And so, prior to this conversation, I think, most people generally think of Teams for, chat and meetings, but don't necessarily really think of it, for telephony or, some of its other capabilities. So this slide really just kind of shows that, typical journey from, say, you picked up Teams during, the early stages of the pandemic, or, potentially even before that. You were using it for meetings. You may have been using it to chat internally, from one employee to the other. Some employees may have kind of started getting comfortable enough to actually, talk to some people one-on-one internally. A logical progression from there really is saying, well, I can make external calls from the same tool as well. Let's consolidate. It's very user-friendly. How do we make that happen? That tends to be a pretty common sort of like step 2 or maybe step 3 in Teams adoption.
So, hey, Will, so
Yeah.
there's actually a little conversation happening in chat, which I think is really important to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Because we get one particular question a lot, and the question about analog, right? Dealing with analog devices in the environment, right? And a lot of people feel that there are no ways to integrate analog. So I know Sat is responding, yes, you can do it. I don't know if he wants to interject or continue with the chat.
Yeah, I can expand on that a little bit. So I think there is a slide, Will, after this one where we have the direct routing topology. I think that'll help clarify some of this. We have like a visual representation of how the analog interconnectivity works with Microsoft Teams. I just want to get to that page and I can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, we'll skip ahead in the interest of time.
I mean, if you were going to cover it, then we can wait. I didn't know that.
No, that's it. A dialogue is great. So I'm more than happy to, we can jump around. That's fantastic. So I think this was the slide you were looking for, Seth.
Yes. So, and we can certainly go back to the previous slides, Will, because I think there's some good information there to share with the group. But this is a high-level topology diagram that we have for the North Americas. We have multiple data centers, as I mentioned earlier, in Mount Prospect, Illinois, and Dallas, Texas. Each data center runs multiple pairs of physical SBCs. These are carrier-grade session border controllers, so similar equipment that your Verizon, AT&T, Lumen uses in their data centers. We tied these two instances of SBC with customers' Office 365 tenant. Correct, yes, these are Ribbon 5400 series SBCs that we use. We are also partnered with the Ribbon directly, so we resell a lot of Ribbon infrastructure and we have a long-standing partnership with Ribbon directly. So on the right side, we see the Microsoft Cloud, which is a customer tenant, right? So as we onboard, we attach that customer tenant to both of our SBC infrastructure, and we also configure a failover call routing so that if for some reason a connection is not established with, let's say, Mount Prospect, the failover routing will automatically redirect that call to the Dallas SBC and vice versa. Now, below the Microsoft Cloud, we see another icon called NVX. So NVX is a Netrix hosted SIP-based telephony systems. This is an infrastructure that is built by Netrix from ground up. It is running and operating from our data center, highly redundant, high available solution. And we leverage this NVX platform to provide interconnectivity with analog devices, as well as SIP devices. So we provide the gateways to our clients for each of their site, depending upon the requirements, right? You may have 2-port requirement at one site for a paging system or an elevator phone or parking lot phone, whatever the case may be, or a physical fax machine. So we can provide a physical gateway for that location. That gateway connects back to our NVX platform. And because we run the NVX and the Teams direct routing instance, like all of that together, we can provide inter-cluster or inter-platform routing. So you can imagine a solution or a scenario where a Teams user can pick up the Teams desk phone or use the Teams soft client and call 4, 5, 7-digit extension, whatever your dialing pattern is, and can now connect to a paging system in your warehouse or manufacturing plant or whatnot and broadcast a page. So completely integrated solution. We also help customers kind of like create a Azure contact object for those analog things so that it's directory searchable and people can search from their Teams client and leverage click to call type functionality. So hopefully that answered the analog questions. We do run into situations where customers may have a SIP-based endpoints. So paging system is something that comes to mind every time I talk to clients about this. They may have an analog-based paging system. They may have SIP-based paging systems, which is also available. So we can register those SIP-based endpoints directly into NVX because it is a SIP infrastructure and still provide the same level of interoperability that we would. So hope that answered. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think there's one question I don't know if we addressed, and it was from Bob Dubois or Robert Dubois. What do you do to provide traditional PBX functions in the Teams environment, meaning feature parity to an existing, I would imagine, existing PBX that they've been accustomed to, right?
Sure. Yeah, and again, it's a good question. Comes up quite a bit, especially for our clients who are coming from a PBX platform that they may be using for decades. It all comes down from comes down to discovery and requirements gathering. What are we using today? Like traditional PBX in a sense, extension calling or common area phone. We talk to clients, we understand their requirements. Because Microsoft Teams is going to be the base platform, we are able to replicate a lot of those call flows and workflows in Microsoft Teams. There is call queues, auto attendant, hunt group. I mean, the platform has evolved significantly from when it came out first. So understanding the requirements, positioning the right component in Microsoft Teams to satisfy those requirements. And in some cases, there may be a little bit of shift, right, in terms of habit on what you may be doing with your traditional PBX. We can provide a similar capability in Microsoft Teams, but with a slightly different, call flow and things like that. Because at the end of the day, Microsoft Teams is a next gen modern phone system replacement to a legacy PBX, and things are different. So it's not always like to like, but we are able to provide a closest replacement solution. And then, obviously there is sometimes where Microsoft Teams is unable to meet specific requirements. That's where we can leverage our NVX platform, which is almost like your, it has a complete PBX capability that your traditional PBX system would provide. And then we can still provide to the end client Teams plus NVX combined solution and meet all the requirements. So my ask always to our clients is, as much information as they can provide to a partner like ourselves during the discovery sessions on, use cases, call flow, user personas, things like that, that will help that helps us to provide the best solution forward, because hearing the requirements kind of drives, okay, this is a Teams fit, this is an NVX fit, or this is going to be potentially a third party or things like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Sat. I will send out a PDF copy of this slide deck. So, I think there were some we kind of jumped over, and now I'm going to jump back. Everyone will get a copy of this, so you can, browse it on your own time after the fact as well. I think that's probably a pretty good segue into, so why is this thing skipping around on me? So you may be, saying, okay, so Teams is great. How does Netrix fit into that equation? Why, what's your role? What value are you guys adding? Sat kind of covered that, as far as, additional functionality. The short answer is really, cheaper call rates, more flexibility, additional functionality, and better support. So that's really where we come into the equation. You can, do a voice solution directly with Microsoft, depending on what, licensing you have today. That'll sort of dictate what sort of add-on licenses you need to get from Microsoft. However, everything that Microsoft does for phone system is per user. And one of the things that we can offer that's kind of unique in this space is a concurrent session-based pricing model. So, in addition to, better 24/7, 365 support, some additional features that we can offer, like, E911, call recording, SMS, stuff like that doesn't natively come, with Teams Voice if you go with Microsoft directly. Our concurrent session-based pricing is cheaper because it's not priced per user. We look at your historical, usage data, number of calls, how many people tend to be, making a call at the same time, things like that, and price basically a bundle of minutes and concurrent sessions rather than per user pricing. So it is generally more cost effective unless we're talking about really, really small headcount organizations, like, maybe like, in that 5 to 15 user range. In that case, we're still, comparable, and we still have better support and features and all that. But you really see the price delta, as you grow into, kind of a larger headcount. That's when you really see an advantage with concurrent session based.
Will,
I think I saw another
Yeah.
question about Teams IP phones. So
Yep. How would
let's answer
this
that one
solution?
too.
How would this solution work with Teams-enabled desk phones?
Yeah, I can answer that. So it works the same. The PSTN calling capability is activated on the user account or common area or meeting room. So the object itself is enabled with the calling capability, and you can log in with that identity on your desk phone, on your soft phone, on your Teams mobile app. Wherever you have access to Microsoft Teams, you will have access to the telephony services within Microsoft Teams. So it's the same account. And there is plenty of Teams IP phones available that we can also provide to our clients. There is an OpEx and CapEx model. So depending upon what the financial strategy is of the organization, we work with each client and kind of position the appropriate offering. And if you are coming from a Skype for Business shop, we can also provide guidance on some of the phones that you may be able to reuse. So if you aren't aware, there is a SIP gateway support that Microsoft has released that allows some of the legacy or Skype for Business phones. There is also some Cisco phones on that list to still interop with Microsoft Teams. So we can look at what you have, provide guidance on what you can reuse, what you can't reuse, And then for the new phones, we can provide, OpEx and CapEx option that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so this table, do you do a POC? I'm assuming that's proof of concept.
Yes, yeah, we do. And there is a couple of different things we can do in terms of POC, right? So we can do POC and we can also do pilot. We have some, demo accounts that we share with clients that has a fully functional Teams telephony account as well as SMS. So like Will mentioned earlier, we offer SMS functionality, which is something unique to us. It allows users to use their business phone numbers and receive SMS message without leaving the Microsoft Teams interface. It also supports MMS. It has a shared messaging capabilities or departmental type, texting. So we can share the demo accounts to our clients to kind of try it. We also do a pilot in customers tenant, and we can onboard them and activate 20, 30, 50, whatever the right number of users is. That pilot typically that we do in the customer's environment, that's a paid engagement, and we can time box it to 30 days, 90 days, however long we want the pilot to go. We also work with Microsoft a lot. We are Microsoft Gold partner. For some of the clients, we can work with Microsoft and kind of secure some fundings through Microsoft so that the end cost to the customer is zero for any kind of piloting. So a couple of different options that we can work with.
Thanks, Seth. Let's see. So as he kind of mentioned, we do offer, I'm going to skip ahead, phones, room kits. We're really flexible as far as, however you want to consume, support, and finance, your solution. So, we can offer those Teams IP phones. You can buy them outright. You can, essentially lease them from us, which comes with, 24/7, 365 support, including break fix. Something I wanted to touch on before just kind of opening it up for questions as well is we actually also offer, Teams room kits through our, collaboration practice as well. Digital workplace is part of that practice group. Teams has really, and Microsoft has really invested heavily in their Teams room solutions, which are, an extension of Teams, the application. It's the same user-friendly interface that, people have become really accustomed to. So, everybody kind of knows how to find the chat section on Teams on the left-hand side, how to make a call in Teams on the left-hand side, join meetings, etc. With Teams rooms, it's really extended into your in-person conference rooms. I think, most people would probably agree that, going forward, there will probably be, in-person meetings again, which is great, but there will probably also be, a handful of people who aren't, physically present in those rooms. And a lot of, current AV technology, I think people have seen before and, tried to join a meeting in a conference room and fumbled around with a million, different dongles and, controllers, and the meeting started 15 minutes late because no one could really figure out how to actually get that equipment up and running, and that is something we offer as well, and can price both as a service in an OpEx or an outright purchase. And so with that, I mean that pretty much covers most of the slides. I know we skipped a few, and I will send this out, but I think it's great that questions came up, and I'd much rather kind of have a conversation and answer questions. So I think that's probably, a good place to leave it.
There was actually another question. Bob had a question.
Yeah,
perfect. David had a question.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's see.
So I can answer David's question, Will. So with Microsoft Teams as the phone system, right? Obviously, all the users log into Microsoft Teams, and if there is a service outage within Microsoft Teams, we have a backup option. Like in that topology picture, we have the NVX platform, which is our SIP-based solution. So for a lot of customers, what we have done who wanted a similar kind of failback plan, right, in case they cannot log into Teams to protect their company main number or executive's main number, we can provision them in the NVX platform itself, and then we can do a call forward from their Teams number to the NVX numbers, and then in that rainy day situation, users will log into the NVX client, which is a web-based client, so they don't have to download and install any kind of application on their PCs, and they'll have access to their business phone numbers. We could also work with clients and forward their work number to their cell phone numbers if there is an extended outage in Microsoft Teams. So us providing the direct routing subscription gives us all those capabilities through our SBCs that we can manipulate the call routing and land the call to a different destination in case there is an outage in Microsoft Teams. So those will have to be essentially, reported to our service desk, and then we can take care of it. Good question, though. The poly room systems, there is native Microsoft Teams rooms systems that we offer to our clients, which is, a room kits essentially for Teams. For a non-Microsoft Teams native systems, we do work with Polycom, PEXIP, Cisco WebEx, and we are able to, so in Poly's instance, the Real Connect service, to provide the CVI, which is the cloud video interop that allows, different platforms to work together and still provide the one-touch dial and, one-touch join type capability. Those are like kind of a unique cases. So it just kind of comes down to what kind of equipment we have, and then, what service we are using, and then that we can position the CVI accordingly. So a little bit more discovery required in those situations. One thing I do want to mention quickly is, for a lot of customers, Microsoft Teams is new, right? It's a lot of people are hearing the concept of using Microsoft Teams as their telephony systems. A lot of customers have had to push Microsoft Teams out in the organization to provide a tool to all their users for collaborations, whether that being due to pandemic or just to provide a tool to your users, but you're not sure of how that is going to function as your actual corporate phone systems. In those cases, we are working with our clients and delivering workshops. These workshops are, about 3-hour session where we, the right folks are brought to the table from the client side. Obviously, it's all virtual. It's an education session primarily. So, and this is all Microsoft funded, right? So we go through a nomination process, nominate the customer, we get the approval, we schedule the workshop. And the whole idea of this workshop is to educate customers on all the capabilities that Microsoft Teams can bring to the table as your corporate phone system. So we take a deeper look at how it functions, all the features, all the PBX type features that Teams offers. So it may answer a lot of those questions, whether it's going to meet my requirements or not. And then from there, we typically jump into like a pilot. And then from there, we talk about, production roadmap and things like that. We have a similar workshop stream for room kits or meeting rooms. So 2 different workshops, and there's also a third one for app dev and customization type of thing. So obviously feel free to reach out to us and we can, work with you and go through the nomination process and workshop and things like that.
Great. All right. Will, if you wouldn't mind, you can stop sharing. I don't think you have any more slides, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Excellent. So we are up against the end of the session here. So some great questions, great interaction. Truly appreciate that. I'm not sure if the folks from Ruckus Ruckus had to move on. I know they did have a hard stop at 11, but they if you need more information, want more information, we can schedule a one-on-one with you with them. Same thing with the folks over at Netrix. Truly appreciate what you were able to put together for us and present. Obviously, I think we've touched on something, judging by the great questions. So would really like the opportunity to dive in deeper with some of the folks that had raised those questions. So please reach out to your contact over at Corporate Data and Voice here, and they'll get you in the right hands. So.
And we will be sharing the video as well.
Yes, so thank you for reminding me of that. Right, so we should be getting that out probably in the next day or two. So we'll get that link in your inbox at least by the end of the week. All right, so we promised a drawing, and we actually have an official fishbowl, right? Yeah. So let me.
We're so vintage.
we are. I said hat before, but it's actually a fishbowl. So I think they're interchangeable at this point, right? So, all right. So no surprise here. Bob Dubois. Some great questions. Had many names in the fishbowl here. So Bob, you'll be getting a gift card from Ruckus CommScope.
Thank you.
All right, and let's see. No, this one, no surprise either. So Jermaine, you will be receiving an e-gift card from the folks from Netrix. So we'll get that information over to them, and you'll be getting an email from someone from there. So that's what we had for you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Will, Sat, the gang over at Netrix, thank you very much. And we'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of your day, and look forward to our next session.